Just ahead on American Black Journal, former Detroit Mayor Dave Bing is here to talk about the first year of his mentoring program for boys and young men of color. Plus, we'll have the details about a special tribute in remembrance of award-winning documentary producer Ted Talbert. Don't go anywhere. American Black Journal starts right now.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. Last year, Detroit Mayor and NBA legend Dave Bing launched a mentoring initiative aimed at supporting and enhancing the lives of young men of color. The program is called BINGO, which stands for Boys Inspired Through Nurturing, Growth, and Opportunities. The young men are matched up with successful male role models from a variety of professions, and in addition to receiving that one-on-one mentoring, they take part in social and emotional learning sessions, and they attend regular educational and social outings. The BINGO program is a part of the larger Bing Youth Institute, which brings together community partners to help young men of color become successful and productive citizens. Joining me now is the founder, Dave Bing. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Good to see you. Good to be with
you. You have not been here since you were a mayor, so
well,
you seem more relaxed.
Much more.
Shocked by that, right?
Much more.
I remember when you started this program and talked about when you left office that this is what you really wanted to do with your time. This was the way you wanted to continue to make a contribution to our community. A year in, tell me how it's going and what you've learned.
Well, it's going wonderful. We started the program in November of last year, so we're approaching the end of our first year.
Yeah.
We have roughly 56 boys, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders into the program. And my biggest problem and concern was whether or not I was going to be able to get men of color to commit.
To help, yeah.
To commit, because that is the key. I was concerned about that, and now we have over 60 males of color that are matched up one-on-one with our boys. And we have 100% retention, the boys and the men, going into our second year.
Wow, wow. And so talk about what they do together. What do these one-on-one sessions look like, and why do you think that's making a difference?
Well, one of the statistics that we found out in our research that 70% of the boys in the program had never been to downtown Detroit.
Is that right?
They
live in the city.
They live in the city. They know their neighborhood. They know their school.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Wow.
So they never had an opportunity to see what was happening around the city that they live in.
Yeah. You talk about the gap between what's going on in downtown and midtown and the neighborhoods. There it is right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we try to make sure, we've taken the kids to the Historical Black Museum. We've taken the kids out at in Dearborn so that they could see what was going out there at Ford Motor Company. We've taken the kids out to Auburn Hills. We've taken the kids to the Lear Corporation so that they can see how business is run. And so we're trying to open their minds up to think that they can be successful. So we're giving them, I think, the love that's necessary, giving them the guidance and what have you, that they're not getting at home in a lot of cases.
Sure.
It's unfortunate that so many of the homes right now are headed by women. And I applaud them for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's time for men to really stand up and say, we've got to take this on and help solve the problem.
Yeah. You said you were worried about getting males to commit to this. How did you do that? What turned the corner in terms of people saying, all right, I can do this?
Well, most of the companies that I went to get funding to help us run the program, my strategy was, at the top of the house, ask, can I meet some of the black men in your organization?
Yeah.
So I can tell them exactly what we're doing and what would be expected of them to participate in the program. Yeah. And fortunately, everybody has come on board. There's never going to be enough of us because the need is so great.
Sure. Sure.
But I'm pleased and pleasantly surprised that so many quality black men have come to the table and say, I can do this, I'll help.
Yeah. I remember when the young man from Cass Tech, the football player, J. Rue Campbell, got into trouble. A lot of people don't know that you were one of the people who sort of stepped in and said, well, you know, okay, this was a bad thing that happened, but let's see what we can do to turn things around. That turns out to be a pretty good story, too.
Yeah, it's so easy to quit on these young men. I didn't want to do that,
yeah.
and I went to him. I had never been to the jail in downtown Detroit until I met him.
Is that right?
But, you know, we brought him on in our organization and used him as a teen role model, if you will. And he worked with us. We worked closely with him. We've got him now. He has graduated. He has a diploma from high school.
Yeah. He
is now a freshman out at Garden City, which is a junior college in Kansas. And he's performing well.
He's playing.
First game, he had 4 TDs.
Wow.
So he's doing very well. And I think by the end of his freshman year, I think there are a lot of Division I schools will start to look at him again.
Right. So, I mean, this is a young man who went from the absolute bottom. I mean, looking at getting kicked out of school, maybe spend some time in jail, and now he's in college. I mean, that's sort of the power of that intervention at the right time.
Absolutely, and we've got to continue to do that. And so once again, I'm pleased that so many men are coming to the table. We're getting ready to expand. Our growth is unbelievable because the need is so great. But anybody who is interested in helping us to be a mentor, our door's going to be wide open.
Yeah. When you look at this program sort of going forward, you talked about expansion. Are there other things that you're planning? Are there other things you need? What will grow this so that it's, you know, 560 kids in the city instead of 56?
Well, the real key is getting the mentors to commit. If you don't have a mentor, and I'm strictly one-on-one, I don't believe in group mentoring. You got to develop a relationship with the kid, and it's based on a continuity of being there, talking to that kid, and listening, understanding what problems they have. I mean, all of us want to think we know how to be successful, and so we're going to tell the kids about our success. Doesn't work. You know, listen to the kid, see where he's coming from, and then you may be able to help him. And so the key is getting the mentors to commit. That's the key. This
is a city, as we've said, that has, you know, thousands of kids in this kind of situation, in need of this kind of work. What do you hear from the kids, though, when they tell you about their lives, when they tell you about Detroit? I'm really curious always about how young people experience and see what's going on around us every day in this city.
Well, a lot of them have given up. They don't have hope because they don't see a future for themselves. I mean, I spoke to a lot of different kids in high school, even in middle school, and a lot of them will say, why do I need an education? Because I'm not going to be offered a good job. I'm not going to have that opportunity. You know, I don't think I'm going to live very long, so I'm going to live fast and I'm going to do what I want to do. And, you know, that's a hard thing to swallow for me as a 71-year-old guy that's gone through the same situation that they may have at their young age. But we got to talk to them and let them know that there is hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And it revolves around your fundamentals, and that's education. You got to get an education. But a lot of these kids will say, I can sell dope and make more money than getting a college education.
They're not wrong, right?
You know, and some of that is really true. But I'm saying, you know, the end result of that is either jail or death in most cases. So if you want to live for a while and enjoy yourself, get a good education, keep your nose clean, and we can help you out. There are enough of us out here that can keep you on the right track. But jobs is going to be key. If you can't give a kid a job to keep him out of trouble, then you've got a real problem that you're confronted with.
Yeah, and we're working on that a little in the city with the summer jobs program, but it's also about jobs as an adult, you know, being able to provide for your family, make a living.
No doubt about it. I mean, you can't have everybody flipping hamburgers, you know, and that's not a negative, but that's a starting point for a lot of people. But what we try to get into these kids' heads is that you're not going to be able to get a decent job to take care of a family without an education. Very difficult. I mean, we have automotive capital, et cetera, et cetera. Years ago, you didn't have to have a great education. You could go and get a great job. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
So it's about preparation, letting kids know how important education is.
I want to change the subject briefly to back to when you were mayor. There's a familiar theme showing up in the news these days about the current mayor, Mike Duggan, and his efforts to build on what you did in terms of demolition. He's having a hard time of it. He's spending more money. The numbers are down in terms of the numbers of houses that they're taking down. I'm curious as to how you see that, given how many times did we talk about how demolition was going and how hard that was?
The demolition is very difficult, no doubt about it. In the last 3 years of my term, we tore down a little over 10,000 homes.
Right.
We got our money from the federal government. The Obama administration was very, very supportive. And I had a staff of people that were committed, and they did a really nice job. But tearing down 10,000 when you got 80,000, it needs to be torn down.
Sure.
You know, it's just it doesn't make a lot of difference.
Right.
Unless you're in that neighborhood, unless you're next door to
Right.
somebody.
Yeah.
But we started off, it was costing us about $10,000 per home to demolish, and we got that number down to about 8,500.
Right.
So it's
so they're at 16,000.
Yeah, and I don't know why either. I mean, when you start looking at line items in terms of, okay, it costs our administration 10, we get all of the documentation in the world. What's driving the increase?
Right.
And so I think the public and the media has a right to know what's driving it. So if you're going to be open and honest, let everybody know exactly what's going on, because you're not going to get much more money from the federal government. So whatever you're getting, you got to stretch it and be very, very efficient.
Right. One thing that I'm always curious about is how much the new mayor, when they get elected and get into office, goes back to the old mayor who had the same set of problems and was dealing with them. How much do they go and say, hey, how did this work? How should I do this? Did Mike Duggan do that? Did he reach out to you and say, this was something that worked under your administration, I just want to build on it?
I did it the opposite way. All the data that we had put together, I gave it to Mike.
You passed it forward.
I passed it on to him. Actually, not only to Mike, but I passed it on to Kevin Orr before Mike.
Okay.
As
the emergency manager, right.
And so they knew everything that we were doing, all the plans that we had, and so they knew about that. Now, whether or not they wanted to use that or do something different is another story.
Yeah.
But had Mike and his administration continued on and improved upon what we put in place, I don't think we would see the rise in pricing right now.
Yeah, well, and pricing is one thing, but also there's an issue about who they're using to do the work, you know, including Detroiters as much as you can. That seems to have fallen by the wayside.
I had 13 demolition contractors that I used in my administration. 8 of them were minority, 5 of them were Detroit-based. Most of them were small companies, small to medium-sized companies. And this is work that will go on for the next 5 or 10 years.
Right.
So if you help them build capacity over time, not only will their companies grow, they'll be able to employ more people, hopefully from the city of Detroit, and create some jobs. And I think that's what's important. Now, our city is not going to come back and do well unless people got an opportunity to get a good job and make money.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when you talk about demolition, it's all about the numbers. How many houses can you take down? Did you feel pressure to sort of rush through it to make sure that, look, we just got to get them down, and maybe we cut some corners if we have to, but to keep the numbers high? I mean, is that maybe what the current mayor is feeling?
He may be doing that, and we didn't do that. We tried to be strategic in our approach, because there were some places around the city where there were 2 or 3 houses that were neglected and needed to come down in a good neighborhood. So we couldn't afford to leave those homes up. We had to go down and either rehab them or tear them down. So you had to have a strategy in terms, and if you're trying to rush through it, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you're just driving to get numbers so it makes you look good, that's not the right approach, in my opinion. I mean, there are places in our city that won't change over the next 10 or 20 years.
Sure. So
let's concentrate on the areas where you can make an impact, where you can make a positive difference, and that's what we tried to do.
Yeah. Okay. Dave Bing, former mayor of the city of Detroit, do you miss it?
Not that office. No, I don't. But I'm happy doing what I'm doing because I do think I can make a major difference in the lives of a lot of young men.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, and good luck with the program.
Thank you.
Yeah. Coming up, details on a new scholarship program in honor of the late documentary producer Ted Talbert. That's next, right after this look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African-American life in Detroit. This week in 1936, Roy Lightfoot was elected to serve as Paradise Valley mayor. In 1966, Jet magazine reported that Conrad Mallett Sr. had joined the executive staff of Mayor Jerome Kavanaugh. And in 1986, Anita Baker's Rapture was the nation's top R&B album. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African-American Life in Detroit.
Soon, Detroit students are going to have the opportunity to follow in the footsteps of an award-winning African-American documentary producer. The Ted Talbert Black Film Festival scholarships will be awarded beginning next year as a tribute to the late Detroit television producer. During his career, Talbert wrote and produced more than 20 documentaries, most of which focused on Detroit and African-American history. He won 5 Emmy Awards and was inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame in 2000. Talbert also established the Joe Louis Video Memorial Room at Cobo Center as a tribute to the Detroit boxer that he admired so much. Joining me now to talk about the scholarship program is Ted Talbert's sister and former Wayne County Commissioner, the Honorable Edna Talbert Bell. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Pleasure to be here.
This is such a wonderful way to honor your brother, who I'm not sure most viewers knew who he was, but they probably saw his work over the years.
Absolutely. I don't think a lot of people knew who he was, but they knew his work.
Yeah.
When you talk about the Joe Louis Video Memorial Room, most folk knew where that was.
Yeah.
Many people went through there. He always made sure it was free, so it wasn't a charge for any of that. He had Boy Scout troops come through there, and churches come through, and family reunions come through. So they knew his work. They didn't necessarily know him.
Yeah. Well, and the documentaries that he did. Talk some about what they were about and what Detroiters can get out of them.
Oh, absolutely. The documentaries he produced were about African-American life in Detroit.
Yeah.
And they chronicled some of the major time frames in Detroit, some of the major people in Detroit. He wanted to make sure that young people knew and could remember what really went on in Detroit and who the movers and shakers were in Detroit. The Tuskegee Airmen, one of his favorite subjects. He won an Emmy for that documentary. It so happens that one of our high school teachers, algebra teachers, was a Tuskegee Airman.
Oh, is that right?
We graduated from Northern High School. And our teacher would oftentimes talk to us about, you know, if a train starts at one point and the plane starts someplace else and they're going X number of miles, when will they cross?
Right.
And that time, this would have been the late 50s and early 60s, you know, we'd look at him and say, sure, you flew a plane in World War II. Well, you didn't remember it, you didn't know, you didn't even believe it. Because we never heard about the Tuskegee Airmen. We never read about any of that in our history books. And so Ted wanted to make sure that young people know about it and had exposure to that. And so Dick Macon, who was the high school geometry and algebra teacher, who was a Tuskegee Airman, kind of inspired him to begin to do the research. And he did lots of research, spent lots of time in libraries, and began to write about African-American life in Detroit.
So growing up with your brother, do you remember at what point he decided this is what he wanted to do?
Well, to be very honest, this was not something he talked about when we were growing up.
Really?
Absolutely. In high school, he played baseball and played some football, but it certainly was not something he ever talked about. As a matter of fact, his biggest effort was to hurry up and get his homework done in study hall so he didn't have to do it at home.
Right.
And he made good grades, passing grades, lots of B's and C's. I had to work real hard for the A's I got, but I was always upset because he could do it in no time and be gone.
Yeah.
But no, he didn't start doing this until he went away to college. He went to California for college. Then he went to Buell, Idaho for some strange reason.
Wow.
He went to school in Buell, Idaho for a while. He was the only black in the city.
Maybe in the state, I was going to say.
Probably in the state back in the 60s. But when he came back from college, he began to talk about and I think that might have been what encouraged him to do that, because he was the only black in the town and in the school. he began to talk about history and wanting to make sure that young people had a sense of what the history was, particularly in the city that he loved and grew up in.
Right.
And that's when he started to look at documentaries, started working on them, started writing. Of course, one of his first loves was comedy, and people don't know that. They paid him not to finish his show one week.
That's right. Yeah, it might not have been his calling.
No, I don't think so. But that's when he was in his early 20s, mid-20s is when he really began to think about how do we chronicle the activities of African American life in Detroit, and how can I help do that? And that's when he began to write the documentaries, produce and interview, and do all the research.
Yeah. So the scholarship fund that you are
the scholarship
funding, this is a competition, correct?
It will be a competition, and that's why we're introducing it now. We're introducing the committee so that we can get others who will join us in this effort, this committee, to help us with this. But the scholarship the first one won't be given until next year. It'll be a year from now, and that's why we want to give young people an opportunity, a year, to get ready for it. It will be given on his birthday, which is October 22nd.
Okay.
This is why we're having the event next Thursday on his birthday. And it will be a competition for young people who want to document African American life in Detroit. That will be the subject.
Right. So they will make their own
They'll make
films?
their own film about whatever the subject matter is. Our goal is to have professionals who do this review those, to review them for the competition and to determine what the best one is, and then we'll provide the scholarships based on that.
Yeah, and these will be college scholarships.
This will be monies for them to college, or if they're going to a school of creative arts, whatever that is, to help them further their career in making documentaries.
Yeah, this is a business that, like any part of the media business, is changing pretty rapidly. What do you see when you think about young people trying to do what your brother did? I mean, there's some challenges there that he probably didn't face.
I would think there will be some significant challenges. First of all, I don't know that young people today even recognize what went on 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Right.
And it'll be interesting to see what topics they choose to chronicle African American life in Detroit, because of course in those days, you know, he had things like From Randolph to the Rouge that talked about the labor movement and the African Americans that were involved in the labor movement. Of course, Joe Louis, which was his champ, his favorite person, and Still the Champ, another one of his Emmy Award-winning documentaries. He talked about black judges who had letters, who were athletes from University of Michigan and other schools. He talked about nurses, the black nurses, and so there were lots of things he talked about that I don't know if these young people have even thought about.
Right.
Paradise Valley.
Which we're now at least talking about trying to recreate in the city. But every time I say that to somebody,
they don't know what
they
you're
get a little
about.
curious look. They're not sure what that was.
Exactly. Even if you talk about Idlewild, A Place in the Sun. And Idlewild, these young people probably never heard of and don't know that that was the African American entertainment mecca and resort that was between Chicago and Detroit. And that's where many of us went because we couldn't go anyplace else.
Because you couldn't get in to other places.
Exactly.
What were some of the barriers that you feel like your brother faced at the time he was trying to do this? I mean, it was a different time and there was more overt discrimination,
It was a different time. The discrimination was much more overt. He was very good, though, at getting around some of those things.
Making your way,
and making his way through. Again, he did lots of research, spent a lot of time in the libraries, did a lot of reading, did a lot of talking to people about what the issues were. But he had a lot of people to talk to. And I think these young people will have some people to talk to. I don't think they know it yet, but as they begin to think about it and do the research, I think they will come up with people they can talk to about what goes on in the city.
Well, and it's about that meticulous attention to detail. I mean, when I think of your brother's work, I think of just how rich it all was, and you only get there by, as you say, staying in the library, staying in the books, looking through everything you possibly can before you produce the work.
And that's what he did. It would always amaze me how much time he spent writing and rewriting. And he literally wrote it out on long yellow sheets of paper.
Right, not typing.
I know, but however, he did have this old typewriter, oh my goodness, that he used. and in later years, he finally started using the computer.
Yeah, right.
But in the early times,
it goes faster if you use the computer.
He wrote it out longhand, and nobody could read it but him. but he did write it out longhand.
Right?
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, this is a wonderful way, as I said, to recognize your brother, to remember his work, and good luck with the scholarship.
We appreciate it so much. I will be at Wayne State University next Thursday, the 22nd of October. His works are at the Wayne State Ruther Library of Labor and Urban Affairs, and some of the items from the Joe Louis room will be there. The scales that Joe Louis used, some of the trunks, the glove, and some of the other items will be available for people to see.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. Plus, you can hear our show on WDET 1019 FM. We'll see you next time.
This program is part of American Graduate. Let's make it happen. A public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.